between the roles of agile coaches and scrum masters by the book versus in the reality?
The authoritative content is primarily the Agile Manifesto and the Scrum Guide. Right, that is what we can call it as more authoritative content. Everything else is interpretation by various authors.
Right. So what do you mean by native agile?
Management now to open an MPP and create a plan, they will not be able to do it. Okay, because they have never done that. Right, and that's where they are native agile. They have only used Jiras and Azure boards and worked with Scrum. So there is an expectation from Scrum Master these days to do things beyond coaching. Right. So I would not say that people are really expecting Scrum Masters to just become project managers. Right. I think that is very unfair to many leaders who understand Agile also.
Scrum Masters and Agile coaches often find themselves caught between the idealistic textbook approaches and the harsh realities of the corporate world. Are you struggling to bridge this gap? If yes, then today we are going to talk about exactly that. That is Scrum Master and Agile Coach's role in books versus reality with our guest, Dr. Hrishikesh Karekar. Dr. Hrishikesh Karekar is a seasoned Agile expert with over 22 years in the software industry. He has held various roles such as product developer, project manager, and Agile coach. Currently, he is facilitating the design, build, and animation of the Agile community at one of the largest MNCs. He believes that Agile is not just about implementing effective, efficient, and lean processes, but also about transforming people's mindset to deliver better ROI and real business benefits. His specialties include organizational change management, safe transformations, and leadership coaching. In this episode, we explore the challenges faced by Agile practitioners, reality of roles, learn practical solutions to overcome them, as Dr. Hrishikesh provides actionable strategies to help you succeed in your role. I promise you, this episode will be an eye-opener for you all. So take a book and pen to take notes and enjoy the episode. So let's get started.
Hello, Dr. Rishikesh. Welcome to the podcast by Agile Coaching Roundtable. It's a great pleasure having you on our show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this.
All right. So today we want to have a conversation with you on the real hot topic that is going around the role of agile coaches and scrum masters in the books versus reality. And we know for the fact that you work as a global delivery head in one of the multinational companies, and who better than you to have a conversation with on this very hot topic. So to begin with, we let's address the big elephant in the room. So want to understand in your knowledge and in your experience, obviously you have a very vast experience. What is the key difference between the roles of agile coaches and scrum masters by the book versus in the reality?
Okay, so if you go by the book, right, or as I understand the book, right, and though there are, and these are interpretations of different people, right, the authoritative content is primarily the Agile Manifesto and the Scrum Guide. Right, that is what we can call it as more authoritative content. Everything else is interpretation by various authors. Right. So if you go by the book, people would say that the Scrum Master Agile Coach is more or less the same. The Scrum Masters is also an Agile coach, right? Is what many people also say, that okay, the Scrum Master is the coach of the team, and so on. And Yes, it was true until a certain point, right? Yes, especially in the initial days of Agile, when nobody knew Agile and all of that, this definition did hold true, right? Because everybody had to be coached. Nobody knew Agile and so on and etc. Right? So from a book definition, and then the book definition of the Agile coach or Scrum Master is somebody who is bringing in the new practices, somebody who is training the people, coaching them, mentoring them, solving organizational impediments, right? So Scrum Master, depending on their scope, could be solving organizational impediments around the team, whereas an Agile coach could be maybe a couple of teams, multiple teams, all right, or that organizational or program setup. So, but more or less the role was more or less the same, right? Or it differed sometimes in scale, right? That the scale at which a Scrum Master versus an Agile coach is operating could be different, right? Now, that
Correct.
was in the initial period. And one of the important things we have to note is the Agile Manifesto has been 20 years plus. SAFe has been more itself for more than 11 years, right? It was launched in 2013. Now, we in Agile we talk about evolution, things changing, etc. So we have to also realize that the world has changed, and so something has changed, right? For example, as part of the formal role definitions of Scrum Master Agile coaches, training was a big part of the initial period because nobody knew Agile, right? Whereas today it is not needed, right? So that is
Correct.
where if you look at the book from the lens of what originally Agile was, then yes, Agile coach needs to be a trainer, facilitator, mentor, coach, etc. But example, if you cut down now to 2024, right, which is 20 years after the manifesto, and a lot of things have passed, a lot of tooling has come, and so on. Now there is a and the scale at which Agile operates has also changed. See, Agile also has gone to the enterprise, right? Now that means that uh, a Scrum Master typically is managing one or two teams in the enterprise, right? That is the definition the enterprise has adopted, right? It may not be that, so it's left to interpretation whether it is right or wrong. But from an enterprise context, a Scrum Master is one or two teams, and it is not the entire
Correct.
company. In a small startup or a small product company, the Scrum Master is coaching one or two teams. It's still the scale is same, but that's basically the entire company, right? So the problems a Scrum Master will solve in a startup or a small product company with two teams are going to be very different than the problems the Scrum Master will solve in an enterprise, right? And that is where we see the different definition of the role at an enterprise level, right? Because at the enterprise level, we don't want the Scrum Master to coach the CEO. Nobody, it's not going to
Correct.
happen, and it's not logical as well, right? Because many Scrum Masters, right, especially people who are at the entry levels, do not have the experience to handle a CXO, right?
Correct.
And so on, and also they do not have the exposure. So the book definition and the real definition differs in many things. One, because the book is looking at a very idealistic or paradigm in a certain point in time, right? The manifesto was 2001. Scrum is written only for a single team, and it assumes that you will extrapolate it for the enterprise, whereas it is not really extrapolated, right? So there are many differences in the whole setup, and that's where the gap that we see now, and it is now more evident which another thing which has really changed and widened this definition between the book and reality is what I always call the whole concept of native agile. We are no longer working with a
Um,
generation who has worked on waterfall,
Correct.
Absolutely true. Yeah.
right? So we are working now with developers, testers who have even joined the industry 5 years ago. Okay, they have never seen waterfall. So what transformation are we
Correct.
talking about,
Mhm.
right? So that's where the role definitions are changing. Yeah. So that's my thought. Quick one.
Okay. So uh, I'll start with the last word that you said, transformation we are looking at, right? So now when we talk about transformation, maybe though it's like we call about agile transformation, I know the landscape has changed. I know the scope of the entire transformation has changed, right? Now, what is the expectations that has put across, especially to agile coaches?
when we get into the transformation aspect of things, right? And if it is not specific to agile, what are the other things that people at an agile coach level also need to look at from a transformation point of view?
Okay, so I would not call it agile coach or name a role title, uh, but the industry has several problems, right? There is a problem of balancing speed versus resilience, right? So while agile has prioritized speed all the time, right, we still operate in a world where resilience is very important, right? Where my organization, example, to go to a bank or a insurance provider, they have to make sure that things are working. It's not just about delivering fast there, right? It's also about delivering fast at the main time, at the same time delivering with the right safeguards, the right protocols, the right regulatory frameworks, right? Ensuring everything is, all the checks and balances are there, right? So it is not just about speed. See, we one thing, and so that is where, and so these organizations want to achieve that speed or agility, etc. But that is not the only goal, and that is the transformations many of them are nowadays looking for. Again, so that's one. Second is around innovation, right? So people are looking, how can you be drive innovation, right? So, and there are many things, right? I'll not go into each of them, but what I wanted to say is it's beyond just agile. So whoever is playing that transformation role, so now that role is a multidisciplinary role. It's not just agile, right? And there's, yes, there are those roles to be taken, right? But if you just go into a large engagement or a customer saying, I'm here to just do agile transformation, it's not flying in my view, because the customer, yes, customer wants to transform, but agile is the means to an end, right? What they actually want to create is better innovation, better resilience, better speed if they are really slow, and all of that, and they want to do it operating in that entire environment. And so that is one, right? Second thing is, 10 years ago there was a big so everybody wanted to be a e-commerce setup, right? What does that mean?
Correct,
That
correct.
everybody is wanting to emulate Amazons and the Googles, etc., and all of that. By the way, Google is not that, I would not call it, say it's not agile, but it is not really following all of these practices that we so advertise, right? So second thing is, so now people have realized in the enterprise that it is not really necessary. Many enterprises can live with a 3-month cadence. The world is not
Correct.
going to change if they don't deliver, every week. And they realize that it's actually better, more efficient to do it things properly and deliver once in 3 months. That's where we see the popularity of safe, right? Though everybody can crib about it, it's still popular because it addresses the need on the ground, right? If I'm okay with a 3-month cadence and my business is still making money, I mean, you don't come and tell me that it is not right, right? Yeah, tomorrow my business starts to lose money, then I will think about other solutions, right? But so far that my business is making decent money, good money, I'm growing, and this cadence is working, yeah. And because there are other problems to solve, so I think that realization also has been there in the industry around this. And that is why the transformations are now not just pure agile transformations, right? 10 years ago everybody was launching agile transformation also because it was the new shiny thing.
Need of the, yeah,
It was a new shiny thing. See, right? And now it is no longer the new shiny thing. What is the new shiny thing? Gen AI. So all budgets are moved to Gen AI.
correct.
That's, see, another thing that you have experienced, right? And I, in one of the, okay, it was not public. I showed some data from Google Trends, and I would encourage you to do it. So I did some data trend, Google Trends data on Scrum Master, Agile Coach, these keywords, Scrum Master, Agile Coach, and business agility. And all of them show a decline after 2022.
Wow.
Okay, in Google Trends. And if you, why it is that, I'll send you separately those screenshots. Why is that? It's because Gen AI came on the scene. That's when
Correct.
2022 Gen AI came, and suddenly the world's attention was shifted to that new shiny thing, which is now Gen AI.
Yeah.
Right? And also the remote and many things, of course, contribute to it, right? But that's how we have to realize organizations are, right? I mean, and so on. So transformations are there, and agile coaches, good agile coaches, are very equipped to lead organizations in them, provided they build skills beyond agile, right?
Absolutely.
So there is a lot to
So
do in
maybe
transformation. Yeah.
so when you so maybe whatever you have mentioned right now in the agile transformation space, right? So is it safe to call it as business transformation rather than agile transformation? Because agile is
Absolutely.
just one part of it, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
as you rightly mentioned, now customers are looking at innovation, they are looking at resilience, they are obviously looking at the quality, right? Not just agile. So I would say maybe I mean just I think yesterday or day before yesterday, I had written a post about it. These processes or practices or maybe agile, they are they are like a backdrop, right? They are not like a backbone anymore, right? So they
Yeah.
are just backdrop of this entire business transformation and not the only transformation that we need, right?
Right. Absolutely. And see, one of the things is, so it's not that agile is no longer needed or agile practices are no longer needed, right? So many of these practices have a lot of value, right? And some of them have been doing, people have been doing for ages. Like I have been in a PI planning or similar, it was not called PI planning, but in my product company almost 20 years ago in a similar exercise. It was not called PI planning that time. They used to call it release planning or big room planning
Big
sometimes,
room planning.
and so on. Right now, Safe definitely brought in all together and gave a good name and established a good practice, and there is value in it, right? So good practices will continue and they are still very much needed, and that is where. But okay, now 10 years ago, 12 years ago, because people were purely in waterfall, many of the players, and they had to be shifted. So the business, it was also business transformation only, but a big part of the transformation was about moving to agile, right? And that is why we used to call it agile transformation and all of that, right? Now that time is gone because a lot of players have it at least theoretically moved to agile. They have their new processes written, they have their quality departments upgraded to support agile, their KPIs have been upgraded, contracts have been upgraded. So while they may not be really at the agility level in a good way, from a process, practices, education perspective, they have, many of them have walked that journey already. And that is why the need for a big scale agile transformation goes down. The need for agility is not going down, right? It was there earlier also, now also it will be there basically. So that is why it is a business transformation that was agile 10 years ago. Now it is Gen AI or something else. So business
Yeah.
transformation is the
And
core skill basically for agile coaches.
absolutely. And you also mentioned something about native agile, right? So what do you mean by native agile?
So native agile is a term I'm always using these days, basically to say, see, when I started my agile journey, so I was already a delivery lead, transforming lot of, delivering large scale projects, etc. That time in 2012. Now, when I started to as a agile transformation lead and coaching people and so on, everybody around me did not know agile. First of all, everybody around me had deep experience in waterfall, the leadership, the middle man. So I classify three layers. There is the leadership layer, the middle management, and then the actual workforce, the developers, testers, etc. Now 10 to 15 years ago, the leadership was definitely had experience in waterfall, middle management also, and the developers also. If you come today, the top leadership definitely has seen waterfall, and maybe they have never upgraded to agile, and so there is still opportunity to coach them into agile if they are not there yet. The middle management, right, people who are at the 10-year 11-year experience, many of them were developers, testers, junior roles 10 years
True.
ago, and they probably went through some transformation themselves, got some training, got some coaching, etc. And by the time they became leads or landed in the middle management roles, it was already agile, right? So they have never experienced at that middle management, example, at the project manager level, waterfall. Maybe at a developer level, they experienced waterfall, but at a project manager level, they always saw Scrum. It was bad Scrum probably, but they saw Scrum only. They have never seen that big MPPs. Half of them don't even know how to create an MPP. They only know how to work with Jira and Azure boards and all of that. right? I mean, you can try this experiment. Ask any
Yes.
of the middle management now to open an MPP and create a plan. They will not be able to do it. Okay, because they have never done that. Right, and that's where they are native agile. They have only used Jira's and Azure boards and worked with Scrum. And then the developers of today, they have not even heard of waterfall, because right from their college 5 years ago, agile is what people use, Scrum is what people use, right? So then
Correct.
we have seen a generational shift, and so these people, what is there to transform in these people? Yes, there could be a lot of course correction that is needed, that they are doing bad practices, etc. Yeah, that could be there, and so somebody will need to guide them to be better, etc. That definitely is there, but there is no from and to. There is no waterfall to agile, and that is where I say they are already there, and that's why it is native. Yeah, so that's native agile for me. They have never done waterfall.
Okay. So maybe to put it in maybe realigning them to what they are exactly doing, maybe previously, but now putting it in more context of how we should be reshaping ourselves into fitting into the context, right?
Right, and see, that is where the role has become challenging. Right? We are talking about the role. So Scrum Masters, like I have led large teams of coaches and Scrum Masters. At one point of time in a product company, I had almost 12 coaches across the world reporting, and then so many hundreds of Scrum Masters literally. And the KPI for them from me and my leadership was training. How many trainings have you done, etc., right? Because that was the main work. We had a 5,000 people organization, and we have to finish all those trainings in the next few months, so actually we can launch something. Nowadays we don't set such KPIs, right? Because training was 70% of the Scrum Master job. Now it is no longer, because there is readily available e-learning. They have probably already done in college. This training thing is not needed, right? And so the role itself is, and that's where, and why will you train them when they have learned it in college?
Yes, absolutely. So now, I mean, we have talked, discussed well in the context of what it was back in 2010 or maybe beyond, and now what is the expectation now in 2024. Maybe I want to get more into the specific of the Scrum Master and the Agile Coach role, or maybe the what they are currently doing, or what challenges now they are facing in the global organizations, right? Would you like to talk about that? Maybe specifically what the shortcomings that you observe, with a new Scrum Master entry level job, or maybe as an Agile Coach. What are the gaps that you have observed?
Sure. So I think, especially at the Scrum Master, right? Let's talk about the Scrum Master first. Now, given the organizational setups, especially in the enterprises and so on, so there is an expectation from Scrum Master these days uh, to do things beyond coaching, right? So I would not say that people are really expecting Scrum Masters to just become project managers, right? I think that is very unfair to many leaders who understand agile also well, right? Yes, there are people who will call a project manager role as a Scrum Master and then do whatever. So we will keep those people aside, right? I mean, they will still be continuing to do whatever they want to do. But let's talk about leaders who are hiring Scrum Masters and understand that these Scrum Masters should bring certain skills to me, right? One big part of, so definitely they want the teams, the Scrum Master, to not just be a facilitator, right? Because I mean, my teams, if I'm hiring good people, then the switch to self-organizing should be very fast. So if it is not there, the Scrum Master should really work hard to make it happen, right? And it will not be 100%, right? It's never 100%, but then sit with the leadership and say, okay, in this current setup, this much self-organizing is realistic, and that's what our aim. We have this gap, and this is what we are going to make happen, right? So but many Scrum Masters are not doing that. Either they are going into the extreme project management only because they see a challenging environment, or they go to idealistic, trying to really go by the book of a self-organizing team, and then they struggle, right? So this pragmatic understanding of understanding the landscape, sitting with the leadership, right? And it's not top leadership, right? It will be their program manager, delivery leader, to say this is possible, this is in the zone of the possible, and this is a little bit tough, this is where I need your support. So those skills, by the way, are lacking, because of the famous 2-day class, right? Nobody teaches them those skills in those 2-day class, and many of them don't have this project management background, so they have not learned stakeholder management, they have not learned risk management, leadership communication skills, which you learn as a project manager, by the way, right? Whereas Scrum Masters have always been focused on Scrum only, right? And these are the base essentially. So that is where we see a lot of gap with Scrum Masters, right? Where they are don't have what I would always refer. These are life skills to survive in any
Correct.
organization, to grow in any organization. You need to understand how to talk to leadership. You need to understand risk management, stakeholder management. You need to have strong communication skills, right? It is not just about doing a training or talking with your Scrum team. Can you talk to a senior leader, not from a position of okay, gyan or whatever, right, that high level, but at his level, and explain to him or her why we must do and all of that. So that is one practical skills gap is there, because people were somebody was a tester, somebody was a developer, they attended a 2-day class, suddenly the market was hot, they landed these roles of Scrum Masters, they also grew, right? So because the market was good, a lot of them also kept on getting good positions, etc. So they kept on becoming senior Scrum Masters, and the problem continues with some of them becoming agile coaches also. They do not have these other skills which are needed to operate in an enterprise. So that's one of the big gaps I see in many Scrum Masters, right? Second is, the big gap is, while a lot of agile courses, blogs, etc., have been talking a lot around agile practices, teaching people around agile practices, teaching from the back of the room, or facilitation techniques and all of this, a deeper understanding of change management is lacking.
Absolutely.
People don't understand change, right? People don't understand that change is hard. People don't understand that change will not just happen because you are saying so, right? See, a lot of these Scrum Masters, again, agile coaches, have seen a period where there were organizational mandates to be agile. So
Correct.
the kind of leadership support, the kind of on-ground support they got to just make things happen, it seemed easier. But suddenly, now that the winds have changed, we are facing a lot of challenge, right? Because they have not built those skills to really make agile pull. They have always been, so while a lot of agile implementations are push implementations, right? So that's
Yes.
another skill which people lack. And the third is, and I think Jeff Sutherland also talks a bit about it now. I had one conversation with him once on LinkedIn, is around understanding of complexity. People have not understood complexity, complexity science, and understanding even of that Cynefin framework, right? And
Yes.
and how to use, when people can talk theoretical understanding of it, but saying that everything is now in the complex zone is also incorrect. A lot of our scenarios are in the simple, are in the clear zone, in the complicated zone, things are fluid, and so on. And what we end up doing, right, and the big mistake many Scrum Masters, Agile coaches are doing, that's a big gap, is treating everything in the complex zone and saying everything needs a Scrum
Mm,
solution, right? And it's not, right. It's not. There are many things which can be done in a different way, and that's not a complex problem, right? And always the goal is to help things move from complex to complicated, and it's a flux, it keeps on changing. So that deeper understanding is not there, right? And it's like that famous saying, right? If you have a hammer, everything is a nail,
correct.
right? and and
True.
and that's one of the biggest gaps with people who have a deep theoretical base of Scrum Master Agile coaches. The problem is both places. Yeah, so
Yes,
that's, I
absolutely.
think those three are the key gaps, if you will ask me.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe just a follow-up question on this exactly. I mean, on the framework, right? I think we also had a podcast recording with Dave Snowden as well, and he exactly mentioned the same thing that you mentioned. Ideally, where maybe the project start at a complex level, and then ideally, if you are working as a coach or a scrum master, your intention should be is how quickly we can move from that complex thing to maybe a complicated, and then ensuring that whether we can move into the clear section, right? You cannot be all time into the
Yes.
complex thing, saying that we operate in a complex way. No, that should not be the way to do things. Then what's the point of having a coach or a scrum master to be there
Right.
to without making any difference to the team if you still operate in a complex way, right? So that was one thing. And the second thing I just wanted to understand from you is like when you mentioned about self-management, right? I mean, when we associate it with a team or maybe a larger team, does that become a soft skill that a team needs to have it? Though we keep on talking about, right, a team needs to be self-managing, but it intentionally says that we need to have a self-managing team. But it is a soft skill where you say that these are certain things that everyone needs to understand or know about it. So ideally, it is saying that we need to have this soft skill when we talk about a team, right, as a self-managing team.
Right, right. So on the self-management especially, right? And see, even before Agile became popular, self-management or a team which is able to do things on its own without being directed too much was always a good thing to have, or actually a necessary thing to be successful. So I've led large complex telecom implementations, banking implementations throughout the world in waterfall, right? These are these 2-year turnkey projects. And even in those, empowerment was basic. We were doing waterfall. I mean, we're not calling it waterfall. That was the default way of working. But empowerment was considered that you have to empower teams because then they take responsibility, they go and do wonders and so on. And creating that environment where most of the decision teams are taking, right? Only if they really need, they come to you. Otherwise, you become a bottleneck. See, these are fundamentals of project management, right? Associating them only with agile and saying that, oh, an agile team is self-organized or self-managed and a waterfall team was not, it's incorrect. A good traditional team, right, or before pre-agile days, was also quite self-managed. Otherwise, they would not be able to deliver, right? Otherwise, they are just always dependent on the project manager waiting for orders. And right, and if you will really analyze deeper, if you look at the military, right, which is considered a very authoritarian directive organization, it's not actually. The militaries are self-organized, right? A soldier does not wait, get instructions from the commander on the battlefield before firing a bullet. They just fire, right? Or they act, they run, they whatever they have to do, they will do, right? So self-management, self-organization, decision making, or empowerment, all these have been there in good setups all the time. Associating that only with agile is incorrect, and that is a goal always, regardless of what kind of team you set up. I think without that you cannot be successful. So that's my take on self organization. Always, it's a default for a team to be successful.
Absolutely. And I can relate to what you're saying. I mean, in the initial years of my tenure into IT, right? So definitely it was on waterfall. So at least I would say first 2, 3 years was on waterfall projects only. And I don't remember myself or my team members running for every single thing to the manager saying that, okay, what do I do now or what do I do next, right? So that
Yeah,
means that the self management was still prevailing within the teams.
yeah,
And we would only go to them if at all there was a really big decision that needs to be taken, which will have a bigger impact, right?
right.
That is when we would involve the managers or leads so that, okay, what do we do next, right? So yeah, I completely agree to what you said. And also on to the point that you mentioned about the complexities, right? That is also something got me to think about one of my initiatives within the organization that I'm working currently is that we obviously realized about this complexity that not everything should be agile, not necessarily every project should be agile project. There could be a hybrid approach. I know that people who are like flag bearers of agile would kill me for saying hybrid and all of this, but not every project should be dealt on agile ways of working. So maybe what I had kind of done was I kind of sat with the team who was responsible for this entire brainstorming on new projects, ways of working, and all of those. And I kind of told them that, see, whether you decide it's a waterfall project or a agile project, let's put up some framework to it. Let's put up some
Yeah,
guidelines, kind of identification of, okay, this kind of things, these are the parameters, And the base of this entire framework was the Cynefin framework itself. I mean, the logic of Dave's node in itself. And okay, if this is the complexity, or if this is the other parameters, knowledge, knowns, unknowns, complexities, etc. Okay, this could be a waterfall ways of working, or this could be agile ways of working, or it could be a mix of just all the practices together.
Right.
So now, whichever new project or business that we get into, right? So we see, okay, are these parameters met? Okay, if these are the parameters, then let's put it in a agile ways of working, or waterfall ways of working, or whatever. And then try to move from complex to complicated, if not the simple. So that kind of a reverse engineering is what we try to do. So I
Right.
completely agree on this thing that newer Scrum Masters or Agile coaches, I would not say just people who are very much um, uh, particular about the semantics of the frameworks, right? They do not understand these complexities. They are very rigid in this kind of understanding. Okay, everything is Agile, or everything is Scrum.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I completely agree onto that point.
Right. And one thing I can tell you, right, to avoid this hybrid thing, right? So I have started to say many times, I use a contextual approach, right? Not agile, not waterfall, not hybrid, right? I use what is right for that context, right? And if it means I will mix and match, if that is right, I will mix and match, right? The goal is the outcome is more important than the what methods I use, because I know hybrid people react to it. So at least I have had better
Yeah,
success with contextual.
Absolutely. I mean, again, just to share my experience, I've often used this term, or maybe this kind of, if this fits your context, go ahead and try it out.
Yeah,
Don't justify, or don't try to differentiate, whether it's truly agile or if it's not truly agile. Don't follow it. Maybe, have your ideas, have your identity identified, saying that, yeah, this is what is an agile way of operation, or this is not. But if it is, somewhere between those two, don't differentiate, saying that how do we differentiate, where are we, putting ourselves into, if it's part of your context, go ahead, appreciate it, acknowledge it. And whether
yeah,
because it's helping you out, helping the customer out, there is no difference that you are making to the customer, even if it's agile or if it's not agile. If it's fitting your context, it's making your good outcomes, go ahead, do it as per your need,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, I think Scrum. One another thing, right? If I can just add here is, because we were talking about challenges that a lot of enterprises are facing with not so good Scrum Masters and Agile coaches is, I think many Scrum Masters and Agile coaches do not spend enough time understanding the context and jump to solution, right? And they have
correct.
not developed um, their own ways of working of how to understand the context. Just a second. See, example, if you'll ask me, if I'm getting into a new large scale delivery project, the project has been running for 5 years, and if I have to get into it now, I have developed over the years some mechanism of how in a couple of days I'll get a gist of the project or program, and then figure out, right, where what are the winds here, and right, whether it is, which direction the winds are blowing, and all of that. A lot of and then accordingly tune my approach to whatever I'm put in there to do. Now, a lot of Scrum Masters and Agile coaches again here have not developed these tips and tricks for themselves, how to figure out the context. And again, these are life skills, right? They have to figure out, because somebody puts you into a new project, a new Scrum team. You need to understand how things work there very fast, right? And not assume that I will bring my something which worked somewhere else, right? A version of Scrum,
Correct.
a version of Safe, and then try to force fit it here, right? Because PI planning worked there, it may not work here, right? It's nothing to do about the practice, it's about the context, right? And that's what this adaptation, right? While Scrum Masters, Agile coaches talk about adaptation, we are not that adaptive ourselves many times in terms of the implementations. We are saying safe,
Absolutely.
and then people go around with these maturity models saying you are not here, you're not there, etc., and so on, right? Which is another challenging stuff.
Yes, absolutely. And this is another uh, point which is very, very relevant and important. And I can say with my experience that most of the DMs these days that I get on LinkedIn is, okay, I got into a project that needs agile transformation. And can you help me with some plan on how do I do a agile transformation roadmap?
Yeah,
And how do I, where do I begin? How do I go about it? So this is where fitting into the context comes
yeah,
into a picture. They do not really know that what they need to understand when we say this context, right? So they are like, okay, how do I proceed? I don't know anything. I don't know the milieu of this project. I don't know what teams are working on, what the
yeah,
technology is, right? So this is exactly I see. I mean, I don't know how to respond to such people because it is not something a template, right? I can say that okay, this worked
yeah.
for me, so this will work for you as well. And it cannot be something we say, okay, this is exact the way that should be done across all the projects
Yeah.
globally, right?
Right. And
So
the
that is
irony
also a
of
big
this
risk.
is, see, the irony of what you are saying also, right? The experience that you are having is, we are saying that it is a complex problem, the whole agile transformation, the software development, and all of these areas, while people are asking for templates, which means people are already dragging the problem from a complex to a simple, clear zone, right? The templates are in the clear
Wow.
zone, right? And you yourself are dragging, you are not experimenting, you are not doing sense and respond, right? You are talking about sense and respond theoretically, but you want a clear solution to a complex problem.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right? That's the way I answer. And I to tell them, go sense, respond, and come to me with helping you to understand how you should do sensing, how you should do probing, right? But then that will require you to spend time, I to spend time with you. But that's the thing. That's how you could help some
Exactly.
people, right?
Exactly. That's what I mean. When I get such DMs, I'm like, how can I, with just one single statement, you have asked, okay, give me this agile transformation template,
Yeah,
roadmap template. And it's like I have that in handy and I'm just handing over it to you, and you're going to just exactly apply it, and things are going to work exactly same the way it worked for me.
yeah,
And this is
yeah,
what I call it as carrying the baggage of past, right? So you are
yeah.
carrying the baggage of whatever learnings that you had or experiences that you had in your previous projects, and you're trying to apply exactly what in your current project, and that's a recipe for failure for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And actually, it's because a lot of people became Scrum Masters, Agile Coach very fast. There was a hot market and templates, and that's why we have so many failed implementations also, right? And so on, right? So that's how it is, right? And after the industry has developed these templates, that's when we have started to fail, by the way, right? So one of my first implementations back from 2012 to 2017, it was a large scale safe implementation. It was very early, right? I mean, I attended my safe first training with Dean Leffingwell himself in Bangalore. He had come to India and to train, and it was very
Wow.
old, earlier in 2013, early 2013,
Wow.
right? And so we implemented safe. We didn't we were, none of us were SPCs. We never bothered to go to the class because we said, we went to the website and we told our boss, it says it is an open framework, so why do we need to go to the to some class? And we learned it, and I had a few friends, and we all of us were a group of friends leading the transformation. We read it, we read whatever, we applied it to our context in our product company, a large scale setup, and it was very good. And after 4 years, we went to SAFE with a case study. And they said, but none of you are SPCs. And we said, but does it matter? And they said, it doesn't matter, by the way, right? So they were very honest,
Wow.
and they published it without us, any of us being SPCs also. It's still there on the website,
Wow.
right? So if you Google Amdocs safe case study, you will see it basically, right? So, and it was a very good implementation done without templates. I mean, we invented templates, right? That's how it should be. You sense, probe, you figure out what will work in this context, and then you build a template for you, not somebody else's environment, right? So templatization is required, but it should be built by you for your context, not copying from somebody and then saying, okay, this will work here.
Yes, absolutely true. And I think we have spoken on a good length about the different dimensions of moving from a waterfall to an agile, or maybe from a scrum master to project manager, or maybe trying to be somewhere between. I mean, I have a very specific question over here. Is like in today's time, I mean, 2024. You know, how can organizations effectively measure the impact of scrum masters and agile coaches on the on the way they operate? What are the things that organizations should be doing to assess whether a scrum master and agile coach is doing a difference or bringing in a difference?
So let me take a step back for this question. Okay. So Scrum Master and Agile coaches are one of the several roles which organizations have, right? And let's talk about enterprise. Enterprise has a lot of roles: the architects, the delivery guy, the delivery project managers, delivery executives, sales people, etc. How is their performance measured? It's measured on whatever program, account, engagement that you are part, how it is doing, right? Whether it is succeeding, whether it is failing,
Correct.
whether it is growing, reducing, their success or failure is tied to it. So if I'm a project manager and whatever project I'm delivering, KPIs of that project are my KPIs, right? If I'm a project manager and I'm responsible for production support, then throughput or no severity ones and those kind of metrics become my KPIs. If I don't meet those KPIs, I'm not a good project manager, because ultimately that's what we have committed and that's what we need to make happen. Similarly, a Scrum Master, Agile coach operate in these contexts. So their role is to help that team or program meet those KPIs. So those KPIs apply to them as well. If I'm there in a particular program, which KPI is to make sure that there is no severity one, because it's a bank and it's a mission critical software, then I as a coach also need to make sure that everything is happening there, that this in my role, right? So I'm not going to expecting the coach to now write code, but in the sphere influence, I need to contribute to those KPIs. And if I am not contributing this, then it is not helping. I saw a recent example on LinkedIn only from one of these, around this topic, right? There is a product. The product did some compromises, right, to release to production, and the coach was there. The coach came from certain background and saw it, but did not stop, because it's not part of their role. The deliveries leaders have agreed that it should go forward, but the coach also did not call it out. Things went forward. That release went successfully. Few months down the line, there was a disaster, right, because of that compromise that was done. Now, of course, the delivery is to blame and bear the consequences of that happened. But is the agile coach also responsible? He or she
Yes.
knew that this could happen, but they drew a boundary around themselves, that my boundary is only facilitation, only coaching, and this is delivery. This is not my zone, and so they did not call it out, right? But if and because probably the coach KPI is not that, right? and
Yes.
and that is where the coach KPI has to be the same KPI for that particular setup that they are operating in. If it is a product, the product success. If it is a project, the project success. If it is a transformation, whatever you define as the KPIs of the transformation. I think there cannot be a different set of KPIs for a Scrum Master, Agile coach, and different for the environment that they are operating in, with some tweaking, of course, right? And those have to be outcome KPIs. They don't need to be output KPIs. And I don't care how many people you trained, right?
Yes.
Or how many retrospectives you conducted. It has no meaning.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
also to the point that you mentioned, right? The KPIs, right? So maybe turning around the question is like, is that the organization need to reassess how we are being operating all this while for a Scrum Master evaluation, or as a Scrum Master or an Agile coach, and we need to look at from a point of view, what are the things, impact areas that we are going to assess, right? So maybe what are your thoughts exactly on that point, where the organization also needs to move into the other direction of assessing a Scrum Master Agile coach, right?
See, okay, now this is a very loaded question, and I'll tell you why. Um, if I take an analogy, right? If I take an example of a project manager, right? A project manager, I know how to evaluate, right, very well because of the KPIs that the project has, etc. But not just that. I know that this project manager at this moment, just as an example, is managing a team of 20 people, and and he or she now needs to build skills to manage a larger project or program of 100 people. So that's their next stage in their evolution. And beyond that, they will, if they have talent, they can go and manage an entire unit of 1,000 people, etc. And I know the behaviors, I know the skills that are going to be required for each level. And not just that, I know that because I can draw a career path for them, and I can take them through that career path, because opportunities also will be there, and it's very clear for them. And so assessing becomes, I would not say easy, but more predictable. I can define how I should assess them in a better way. Now come to the unique challenge that we have created in the agile space, especially in the enterprise. People become Scrum Master, right? They are in hundreds and thousands, right? If you just take India, we have probably thousands, right? Or in lakhs Scrum
Yes.
Masters,
Yes.
right? Now, many of them can become coaches, probably, but do we have equivalent opportunities? Example, even if I assume 10% of these Scrum Masters are actually good coaches or good coach material, as an industry, will we be able to give them opportunities as coach? Right? I'm not talking even about the bad people, the good people with good coaching material, right? Can I really find good opportunity for them as coach? Now, let's say I'm able to, not for it, just hypothetical, not 10%, but maybe 2% I'm able to find. Now, I have been an agile coach for 5 years already, right? What do I do after that? Enterprise team coach, program coach, enterprise coach. And then most people would want to, if they have to really grow up that value chain, they would want to become independent consultants. Again, not
Correct.
everybody can become an independent consultant. So we have created a career path which is a bit tricky, right? Which means if I really go in that path of a Scrum Master, Agile coach, independent consultant, a lot of the people are not going to make it that, right? And the skills, right? And if I'm going to evaluate people only on that, right? And then that is where the problem comes in. So what over the past 10 years, we have built mechanisms in our organizations which are evaluating people on this. Good Scrum Masters should be like a good Agile coach, right? So Agile coach material, right? Which means if I'm wanting to promote the Scrum Master or give better opportunities to the Scrum Master, he or she should display good Agile coach material or good Agile coach characteristics. If I want to do the same thing for a team level Agile coach or a program level coach, he or she should exhibit enterprise coaching skills, etc. Now, when we try to define that, and we defined that, but that was a problem in itself, because we created a problem where people are aspiring for skills which cannot give them opportunities, right? And over a period of time, by the way, so this was very prevalent 5 years ago. Everybody, a lot in the enterprises, right? If you'll ask me, example, I started to experience this, especially given the role I play already, that I will have thousands of Scrum Masters, I will not be able to promote, right?
Correct.
What will we do with them? And so we started, and so you have to change how they are evaluated, and which means you have to evaluate them on the roles they will fulfill, right? Which means, example, for a Scrum Master, 80% of the Scrum Masters at some point they want to grow in their careers, they will end up as project managers. Which means if I'm going to evaluate them, I will need to evaluate them the project management skills also, right? Because if they don't have project management skills, how will I create opportunities for them? So yes, their current role may not require them to have all that skill, right? But if they have to grow in their careers, if they have to contribute better to the organization, I need to evaluate them on those skills. So I think that evaluation mechanism should be tied very closely to the growth opportunities that you have.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you are creating a system which is setting up them up for failure,
Failures. Absolutely.
right?
And
So
this is this is exactly what I mean. I would not just blame managers or organizations for not giving the opportunities or setting the career path. the onus equally lies with individuals as Scrum Master or Agile coaches. And I would say why? Because I maybe consider myself in any capacity. You call it Scrum Master or Agile Coach or Enterprise Agile Coach or whatever. I sit with my manager every single year to understand my career path or growth, to understand, okay, now what next should I do that will fit the context of this organization, right? So if I'm working at an
Yeah,
enterprise level, I cannot say that I'm just working as a Scrum Master for a one team or a one program or account or whatever you may want to
yeah,
call. So I literally tell my managers upfront saying that, you know what, this is just a cakewalk for me because I've been there, done that. I want a better challenge, or maybe I want a better growth over here because this I have done all these years, but I want to grow and evolve, right? So how can we get better from here, or what else should I do so that I can maybe climb up the ladder, right? And literally every single year we define that career path. Okay, in this year maybe you take care of say delivery efficiency, or maybe you work on the reducing the cutting down the cost for the accounts or programs wherein you can uh, have some benefits, cost effectiveness or productivity efficiency, right? So these are some of the ways that I try to work in each year and get my KPIs or goals aligned. So I would say this is not just for the organizations or managers to figure out. It is also the onus also lies with the individuals as Scrum Masters and
yeah.
Agile coaches.
Yeah, yeah. Also, another thing, right? Another angle here is one of the things is, and again, this is a in my view, this is a mistake that as an industry happened. I would not say committed because it's not a single person, but it happened is instead of looking at as agile as a skill, we really went overboard on the role, right? As a scrum master or agile coach, right?
Wow.
Right, we have to look at agile as a skill which everybody should have, right? Example, if you take the analogy with project management, right? So PMBOK is a still an excellent resource, and it brings the skill. It tells people what is needed to build that skill of project management. Now, once you understand that, you can be a transition manager, you can be a service delivery manager, you can be a product manager, you can be many things, right? Those are roles that you play with that skill. Similarly, agile is a skill which you have to build. You could be an architect, you could be a delivery manager, you could be a senior leader. You will need those skills in different level, in different depth for playing those roles, right? An architect also needs to be agile, right, etc. And that's where this over reliance on two roles is a complex problem, and is right, it is what has caused long term damage, if you'll ask me, right? And see, example, PMBOK, we never had PMBOK coaches. There were no PMI coaches, right? It was on the project manager, the service delivery manager, the transition manager to take that training, go and certify PM on PMI, and come back and implement it themselves. And they used to make it. I remember I in 2009 I went to Bombay. That time, Pune did not have a Prometric center for PMI. I had to go all the way to Bombay to give my PMI exam, and because my boss told me you get certified and we have to implement better project management. We did not
Yeah.
hire a coach. People learned
Yeah.
themselves, right? So we have outsourced this transformation, and that's a bigger part of the problem. Why leaders are not agile? Because you have outsourced the work.
Wow, that's an excellent line, I would say. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, maybe we'll come to the last segment of this conversation, and I think this is where maybe I'll go back to the start of the conversation where you said, right, maybe Scrum Master and Agile were the hot things back in 2010 or maybe 20 till 2015, and now generative AI is the hot thing, and that is where everyone is moving to, right? So maybe that is where our next question is aligned to, is like, what impact will this emerging technologies, maybe let's not call it even emerging, I think the technology is already there, like AI and automation, have on the agile way of working? What do you think that it is going to make? How much difference, or what are the different challenges or opportunities that this space is going to create for us now?
So I think it is definitely going to create opportunities. for sure. Example, if you look at Atlassian already, the whole Atlassian intelligence, the way it works. I mean, I have spent sleepless nights over JQL trying to fix certain things, but now Atlassian will do it very nicely and fast. And thankfully so it's going to solve some good interesting problems which are going to give a big boost in productivity and so on. And so yes, I think all roles which who will leverage uh, uh, AI or these kind of tooling will benefit, right? And of course, but it will bring that fundamental thing that the definitions of certain roles will change, right? And it's not just related to agile, right? Example, if you take the scrum master role, right? So yes, I don't think that the scrum master role is going to go away in the near future, right? It will continue, it will evolve, right? It will evolve, and it is already evolving. We see the difference on the ground. Tech scrum masters and this and that, a lot happening. But scrum masters who will be able to leverage these tools very well, the AI tools, will be far stronger than scrum masters who will shy from it, right? So people have to learn how to use the Atlassian intelligence, etc. So even 5 years ago, scrum masters who were good at JQL were much more in demand than scrum masters who would
Correct.
just come and talk general philosophical knowledge, right? Of course, see, I'm not saying that only JQL is needed. You have to see, you have to bring all the skills, right? You have to be able to talk the mindset, the philosophy part, but you have to also be able to do the hard stuff, right? And so, see, Scrum Master, and that is where AI and things will make some things which were very difficult for some people easy, and so it will create a more level playing field. So, example, I know a Scrum Master, or now he's an Agile coach who is not so tech savvy, right? And he used to sometimes struggle to land positions where they require a very deep Jira knowledge, right? He can do a lot of the facilitation very well, coaching very well, etc. But now with AI, he can fill that gap easily. He can confidently say, no, I will build dashboards for you, reports for you the way you want, because Atlassian will give them that support, right? And so on, right? So it's going to create a more level playing field, which will mean more competition, and also of course its productivity is going to go up. The developers itself, right? The way we understand a dev team is a different topic in itself, right? What our understanding of a dev team is, it itself is going to change, because you have one new member, which is Copilot, right? And it is
Yeah.
highly productive.
Yes.
So we say that it is 7-member team, but do I really need a 7-member team now? So I can't.
I can vouch for that. I can vouch for that because I work in data analytics organization,
Yeah.
and we have been, told, the developers or the data scientists or analysts, sorry, they use this Gen AI a lot. They use Copilot. Even if you see on my laptop, it's already there. Copilot
Yeah.
is available, and we have like our own inbuilt AI tools, right? And this is exactly what even our CEO says that if you don't use AI, you will be replaced by people who use AI, right? So that is
Yeah,
what the reality
exactly.
would
And
be.
so, see, if we are going to move to a average size of 3 people team from a 7 people team, will I need a Scrum Master? Right? Is the question. Or I will need probably something else, or maybe a Scrum Master for five teams, right? So there are a lot of fundamentals that are going to change in the AI world, basically. Right, and so the whole dynamics will change, right, with that different size team. And I don't need a 7 people team, because I will not just create stuff for nothing, right? I mean, just because I have 7 people, organizations will not do that. They will cut the team size and make it 3, and 3 will be optimal. So
Absolutely. So maybe the last question for today's discussion is, what advice would you like to give to Scrum Masters or Agile coaches to get into the strategic roles in the organization, right? Bearing apart just the Agile, as you mentioned, it's just a skill. So what strategic roles that they can get into?
So many so strategic roles. It can start with transformation, right? So widening their scope of what they can help transform to, right? As you said earlier, business transformation, change management. See, these roles are still there, and will be in demand, right? And see, any large workforce transformation you do or technology transformation you do, you are bringing in a new tool, there will require a change management for that. So those are these roles. What Scrum Masters or Agile coaches need to do to transition to some of these is one, they need to develop, I think, a better understanding of project management, appreciation. Some of them are very anti project management, and they need to read and understand the good parts of it. There are some problems there, but then you are more intelligent, right? So do that. Second thing is, right, I think, to prepare themselves for these roles, right? I think, see, nobody lands in a strategic role directly, right? You cannot apply to a strategic role and then you land there, right? So this is about, strategic roles are often about having those experiences, right? And for that, people need to be in diverse experiences, right? Because you need to have solved different kinds of problems, you need to have done different things, worked in different setups, etc. If your experience is too homogeneous, right? You have done the same thing again and again. Okay, scrum all the time, right? Little bit safe here and there. Why will somebody take you into a strategic role, right? So you need to have domain. I have worked in a banking, I've worked in telecom. So you need to be able to talk about that, and that really helps, right? That when people will see that you are bringing that diverse background of domains, of technology environments, of cultures that you can operate in, then they can, consider you for strategic. And of course, for whatever area you want to get into, you will need to, up your skills in the game. Like example, change management, you really need to go deeper into it. Theory also, just, experience will not help. So theoretical understanding is important because that's the base, and then your practical experience to complement that, right? So yeah, I think diverse experiences is the number one thing which I would say, and we should actively push for that as Scrum Master. So don't be shy of picking up a role which is titled Project Manager, if that will give you a rich, deeper experience. So that's in
Absolutely.
short.
It was really a fun and maybe insightful conversation. I mean, this is why we do podcasts for, right? I mean, it's so good to learn firsthand from all the experts and pick their brains. And we really enjoyed this conversation, related so many things, whatever you have spoken in this entire podcast. So many things we were able to kind of, oh, I did this in so and so organization or so and so project. This is what I had happened. This is what I was facing maybe 3 years ago or 5 years
Hmm.
ago. So there were so many such maybe nostalgic moments, at least I had. And it was an insightful conversation. So thank you so much, Dr. Rishikesh, for coming over and doing this podcast with us.
Thank you so much. I think it was a pleasure to have this conversation.
Thank you so much for watching this episode patiently till the end. We hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll meet you again in the next episode. Till then, if you like our podcast show, then do like, share, subscribe, and let us know your feedback in the comment section. You can also listen to the episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Audible. Thank you.